Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Call the meeting.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
President Gardner,
Here, present.
Vice President Dover,
Present.
Commissioner Scholar, Commissioner Jones,
Present.
Commissioner Lasagna,
Present.
Solicitor Stone,
Here.
Manager Patterson. Here.
Again, welcome to everybody to the meeting tonight, both those in person and on the screen. First item on the agenda is motion to approve the minutes of the workshop meeting of October 13th.
So moved.
Well, I have a correction.
Okay.
I don't get, go ahead.
So moved.
We'll do that during the discussion. Let's see, we need a second.
Second.
Okay, now, discussion and
Discussion
corrections.
on page 4, the whole the whole response or all the information relative to the loan request is so out of sync, it doesn't make sense. I think I would like to redo this. And in essence, what you need to do is, right, what you need to do is take the last paragraph, make it the first paragraph, and then say that the Allegheny County approved a $100,000 loan. And do you want the details of that loan?
Let's see, do you want to rewrite it and
Yeah.
present it next time, or?
No, I mean, everything is sort of out of sync, and it doesn't really flow and doesn't make sense. So if you will, I think you got to do it in logical sequence. First is we received a letter from Senator Matt Smith, which indicated that he sent a letter encouraging the director of Allegheny County Economic Development Authority to grant this loan grant this loan, period.
Mhm.
The loan was approved, and we received the loan for $100,000 with an interest rate of 1.34% with a term of 5%, or term of 5 years. Okay, that's a fact. Boom. Now we go up here, and then you say, well, Sandy, Commissioner, I guess, said the landslide, and I have to change this. As of September 30th, the landslide has an out-of-pocket cost of $35,000. And I estimate that the total cost will be $50,000 out of pocket. That's out of pocket. Okay, now let's new paragraph or new sentence. The front end costs related to the design and construction of a new line will be about $80,000. The loan will cover that. In addition, the actual cost of a new replacement line will be about $250,000. Period.
Mhm.
The authority will have to come up with the $250,000 by either raising rates, and that's pretty tough to do, or receiving a loan from the township. Period. There may not be other loans available in 2015 from both the state and the county, and we will apply for those loans. Period. Okay. And then I guess, and then your paragraph is okay. So that flows.
You got this written down, Sam?
I'm gonna have,
Take it off of there.
I will help you with it. Okay.
Okay.
there's two of them going.
Mm. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other corrections or modifications to the minutes? Well, I would let's see. the motion states to approve, but it would be subject to the corrections as prepared, as stated. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, I need a motion to approve a 3-year contract for police services with Ohio Township beginning July 1st, 2015 and ending June 30th, 2018. Motion, please.
I move that we approve a 3-year contract for police services with Ohio Township beginning July 1st, 2015 and ending June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, go ahead. Any discussion?
I have some discussion.
Good.
I wanted to read some emails that I got from folks about this issue. The first one is from Carolyn Smith. I wanted to say that it seems that Ohio Township does a nice job. If there is anything that the township or police could do about all the litter that occurs along Redgate Road or Deer Run Road, I would assume that we could have an ordinance of a fine and signs put up to enforce them. The litter in our township has increased a lot since the growth of Masonic. Could you please address this with the commissioners? The next email I got is from Jim Hamilton. It seems that we see an Ohio Township police car in the Swickley Heights Manor often. I'm not aware of the need for more frequent visits in the manor or increased speed enforcement in Aleppo Township or by the Ohio Township Police Department. The current arrangement seems to be working well, and I would continue with it.
Okay.
That's all.
Mhm.
Chief, do you have any comments?
You know, I've been in law enforcement 32 years now, and I've seen it evolve from when my dad was a police chief back in the 60s till now. And what we have now has become kind of a model around the state, and I'm getting called on lots of times to come speak to places to tell them what we're doing and how we're doing it. What we've done is taken all these smaller communities and taken the contracts and able to give a much more comprehensive product. You know, I can provide a detective, I can provide canine, school resource officers, and things like that, because it's all something that a small agency could never do before. But I always welcome input. Matt, those couple of people that wrote in, that's great. When you first started, I thought, oh boy, here we go, somebody's gonna hammer us or something, but that's fantastic. And you know, you're never gonna please everybody, but you try to do your best, and it's a great arrangement, and I really enjoy what we're doing, and great. Aleppo's, you know, a jewel. It's so easy to police, and it's such a nice community. So you guys all have a good thing going. Glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have one more thought, which is that, again, at Seven Springs, the number of presentations we saw where we were dealing with police pensions and that we don't have to deal with that, I think is a blessing. I think we get a very good deal for the money.
They mentioned litter along Deer Run. I know that's a factor, but that's something we can address separately, I think. Certainly, we don't have to have the police cleaning up litter along Deer Run. Yes, go ahead.
Sandy Moore, 921 Redgate Road. I'm just thinking the comment about put the litter on Deer Run and Redgate, and it says it's Masonic. My thought might be, maybe they don't mean it's the residents of Masonic, maybe they mean it's the employees.
Right, that's what it is.
At Masonic, you know, just so, because I know I heard somebody say we don't drive. You know, but I don't think it's really you. It's maybe they're meaning.
Well, I suspect the growth,
Or it could be anybody going up the street.
I suspect the growth of Aleppo coincides with the growth of Masonic. So it might just be that
It's just,
it might just be coincidental that
right.
as Masonic has grown, Aleppo's grown, and
Right, and it's just near there. It could be anybody driving up and down the street, really.
Some communities have volunteer organizations take on that task as a volunteer duty.
Yeah, that
Crap.
could be a school kids project. Yeah, they have to do so many
Mhm.
volunteer things. That might be an idea.
Okay, any further discussion? Let's have a roll call vote, please.
President Gardner,
Yes.
Vice President Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lasandi.
Yes.
Motion carries. Motion to adopt a resolution approving sale of crack sealer to Joshua Leclerc of Macadam Company for $9,200.51.
I move to adopt a resolution approving the sale of our crack sealer to Joshua Leclerc of Macadam Company for $9,200.51.
Need a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
When is he coming?
I don't know when he's coming yet, but we received the payment today. So we
In
received
full?
the payment in full and a certified check. And the buyers are arranging with a transport company to come out and pick it up, and the guys cleaned it up and got it ready, so it's ready to go at any time.
Just out of curiosity, Tom, how did they evaluate it?
Pictures on
Just,
there.
just,
I didn't answer any questions for them or anything.
And I take it it's clear that the
Wow.
sale is as is.
Oh, yeah, that was stated in the ad.
okay.
Roll call vote, please.
President Gardner,
Yes.
Vice President Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lasandi.
Yes.
Motion carries. Need a motion to approve Weber's Corner Plan of Lot Subdivision Plan submitted by Earl and Judith Seiler.
So moved.
Second.
Do you have any concerns?
A couple of things you should know about that. Typically, when a subdivision plan, before a subdivision plan can be approved, the municipality's planning code, the MPC, which is the state law, requires that you submit, and I think your ordinance probably follows this, you're required to send that to the county for their review, and that review is the subdivision, I believe it's a 30-day review period. So you have to wait, by law, you have to wait 30 days before you can adopt it in case the county has comments. The ironic part of that is that even if the county does have comments, you're under no obligation to accept those comments, or they're only recommendations and suggestions. But the risk is that if you act prematurely and you don't give them their 30 days, down the road, somebody could claim that it was a transaction that wasn't done properly, and they may try to void it, which means you could go back 15 years. Somebody, 15 years from now could pick that up and say, hey, you didn't wait 30 days. So there's a small risk involved with that. I normally like to see us wait 30 days to make sure the county does complete their review, but in the circumstances, it's unlikely that anyone would complain at some later date over this type of development. It's not a big Ryan Home plan. It's not the kind of thing that somebody would have a motive to challenge in the future. But there is, but I do want to make clear, there is a risk in not waiting 30 days.
How long has it been?
The original plan was sent to the county on August 26th. A revised drawing was sent to them on September 12th. They did say that they were unable to enlarge it and therefore didn't start their review. The applicant surveyor dropped off a finalized larger paper copy for them to review October 6th, I think. But they've had the application since August.
But did the formal review begin October 6th?
They said that they were going to, there was some back and forth about what they had, what they didn't have, what they needed. And when I spoke to them last week, they said, or 2 weeks ago, they said that they had hoped to have the review to us by the end of last week. And I did not check the mail today. We didn't have anything.
Is there any great rush on the part of the applicant?
This is the same couple that have been going to the zoning hearing board and the conditional use and everything like that. I know they are interested in getting their building permits.
Well, but still, I mean, you gotta give the county its time.
I think it's a matter, it's up to you to decide whether the application started August 26th, September 12th, or when this last drawing went in. This last copy of the drawing.
Well, I move that we table this for 1 month.
Second?
There's no discussion of tabling motion, is there?
It's discussable.
Sure. Discussable?
Yeah.
Well,
Sure.
I guess part of my discussion would be, should it be a real hardship on the applicant, we could hold a special meeting
yeah.
on November 6th.
Mhm.
And the workshop is November 10th, and you can
So-
vote then.
All right.
Okay.
I think that's certainly the safer course.
So you have a
I think it's
motion
appropriate.
and a second for tabling.
Right.
Does that need a continuation?
All in favor of tabling the motion, signify by, no, wait, roll, I think we'll have a roll call, please.
President Gardner,
Yes to tabling.
Vice President Dover,
Yes.
Just a formality, if you're gonna table to a date certain, you should specify when you're gonna take it up again.
Well, I mean, I had said 1 month as anticipating the next meeting, but if we want to bring it up at the workshop meeting, I'm fine to amend my motion to table till then.
And I presume the second would,
He agrees.
here it is. So
So the motion is to table till the workshop meeting.
roll call.
President Gardner.
Yes.
Vice President Dover, yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Asante.
Yes.
Motion carries. Reports, public safety. Chief, you're on again. Yes, please stand in front of the camera and smile.
This little girl went to high school again. What, when you graduate, 93?
Yeah, I was like a lot smarter than him. I was a couple grades.
That I will agree.
Well, I'm not as old as you, is what I'm trying to say.
Following the county police activity in Aleppo Township for the month of September. Alarms residence 2, alarms business 2. We had one theft. It's an interesting case. Individuals were moving and the residents claimed that she lost $4,800 in cash. Initially suspected it was someone from the transfer company, and the guys did some investigating, got a hold of the transfer company, and they were very cooperative. And they went back and checked the containers, and the money was found in the containers. So all was well ended well now. A criminal mischief, that was up at Masonic Village. It was an individual had some damage done to his vehicle and suspected someone that was parked beside him. They checked it out, and it's possible that it wasn't, and the two decided to agree that there would be no issues at that point in that incident. A couple of animal complaints. One was a raccoon complaint. The other one actually got a call from PETA, a dog that they thought was being mistreated. And here the dog was a 13-year-old pit bull with dysplasia. So when the dog would walk, it would drag its legs. And the dog was up to shots were good. It was chipped and everything, in good spirits. It was just a 13-year-old dog. And we got back in touch with PETA, and they were satisfied, and everything worked out there. Some citations, 14 citations were written, and assist with the fire department on a couple calls. And other than that, that's all I have.
You had a major accident down on the boulevard for you.
Actually, that was Glenfield.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that portion just between Hayesville and up to Emsworth there, or Kilbuck is still Glenfield. So we assisted. That was bad. The guy was ejected from the vehicle. They said he just crossed over, and I don't know why at this point. And it was bad. Any other questions, gentlemen?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Accept the report. Fire department. No report. No report, I presume. Emergency management. Judy's here.
Okay, your emergency operation plan is complete.
Hooray!
From my standpoint, it's ready to go to the county. We just need a couple things all on your side. We need the mailing to your residents to assess risk. We need your assignments, put in writing that we talked about at the meeting. And we need all of the contact information for the responsible parties, put into the plan. Then it can go to the county. They've already looked at it. It's just kind of a rubber stamp kind of thing. And then it'll come back to us. And then we need to, in the next 12 months, activate our EOC to make it official. So that's where we are. The plan's written, et cetera. So actually, Gwen emailed me today about getting together with her to help you out with doing the risk assessment and et cetera. I think that letter's around somewhere.
It is around somewhere.
Yeah, it just has to go out. November 13th, I'm going to be issued a password for the Knowledge Center. The Knowledge Center is the database that all of the townships, authorities, EMS, hospitals, police, fire, log all of their events so that if there's any needs, they can be met across the region. So say we had, well, if we would have expanded the accident on the boulevard, say we would have had, it was a bus instead of a car or instead of a van, and would have needed additional personnel, it would have went into the Knowledge Center. You can see what's going on region-wide, and other people can meet those needs. So we should have our password for the Knowledge Center after November 13th. I have copies for you guys just because it's mandatory that you have copies of the Allegheny County summary meeting that I've kind of been living for the last 3 weeks, which is the Ebola screening recommendations for anybody that wants them. Here are the new Allegheny County decontamination. So if, and I assume you have these Chief, yeah. So I don't know how one of you guys would become contaminated, but I don't know. You stop to help somebody from West Africa who sneezes on you or something. Here that we just probably should have them filed somewhere. So we just met that requirement. And the other one that I just wanted to check on is, do we do anything with the AED?
No, yes.
Okay.
If we need, we can go over that too, please.
Yeah.
Could we have a
End of story.
copy of the plan? I'd like to.
Yeah,
At some point.
I can't distribute it until it's finalized, and we have to do a risk assessment, which means sending all those letters out. And then we have to go through the area and see what the high risk things are within the township. And put that in the assessment, and everybody's contact stuff has to be in there. As far as who's gonna fill which office in the EOC, that actually George, and Gwen and I sat down and went over. That needs to be physically put in the plan, and then the plan needs to be approved, and then the plan will come here for your rubber stamp or approval or whatever. I don't want to bring you something that needs
Okay.
changed, or you'll have to keep approving it. Every change that's made, you'll have to vote on it again and again and again, so.
Good job, Judy.
Great.
So do you need any action from us? Do you need any?
Unless you want to empower George to assign you to, jobs within the EOC. And then we can just put those in, or have a discussion at one of the workshop meetings.
Didn't we name all those positions?
We kind of did, but they never got really in writing. I never got the contact information or any of that stuff, so.
We have those from the meeting?
If not, Judy and I will talk about it again.
I think I remember. I don't know if do I need to be empowered to do anything?
No, I don't think so.
No, I just handed out some job assignments.
Okay, because then we have to write up those job assignments for the people that have
Yes.
the assignments.
Is the letter and all these other administrative things in
The letter I
motion?
already wrote, it's
Okay.
around here somewhere.
And the other-
I have her copy of
The contact information, all of that is in motion?
It is in motion.
Good. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you. Communications, Matt?
Well, I have really 3 things I wanted to say, although I already forgot one of them. I thought that what would happen at the workshop meeting last week and between last week and this week was fantastic. And I really like this model with the issue of the Citizens Budget Committee, where The motion is made at a workshop meeting. It's discussed amongst us here. When there is a divergent viewpoint identified, we talk it out here. It's recorded. We can take it back in the week between the meeting, the workshop, and the vote, and let people discuss it. Because you're going to see that I have emails on that issue as well, and I have a straw poll for people. And it's good that this is something that I don't think is a really divisive issue. I think both
Get
of
it
you on
all
either
out
side
on
of
the
it.
table, sure.
What's that?
Get it all out,
Yeah,
all out in discussion.
but I think that it's a good practice for the event where we have a bigger issue. So I thought that in sort of this evolving plan of getting citizen participation involved, that worked really well. And I think that we should keep it in mind for the future, that this notion of debate, period of sort of public comment, and then come back to vote, I thought worked well. So that was my good thing. My bad thing is that I've come to the realization that I've not been very good about driving us forward on our notion of the newsletter that we had started quite some time ago. And I don't, it's entirely me. It's not the communications committee. I've just not been good about keeping us moving forward. But I think that that's a realization that I need to make, that's apparently not a priority to me. So I kind of put it back to the board. Is this something that we still think is important? Do we feel, and maybe I ask the audience as well, do we feel as if we still have an itch that we're not scratching electronically that needs to be met through a paper newsletter? Do we need to be recommitted to this, or is it okay being on the back burner for now? Does anybody have any thoughts?
Have you asked through your media? Have you asked the citizens?
I have not, but I think that the people that I would reach electronically are the people that are going to say, we don't need it. Maybe.
Well, like you had good distribution of information now. I wouldn't personally consider it a high priority.
No, I think you're doing a super job with your minutes and everything. I hear a lot of comments about it.
Yeah.
And everybody likes the way it's sectioned, and so they do exactly what they're doing. I think the newsletter will not be as effective as what you're doing. So,
What do you think? Yeah.
I think if you have electronics, everything's right here for you.
Yeah.
And if you look on the website, you would be able to see all the numbers or what have you, important phone numbers or dates. And my only thing would be for people who do not have a computer, you can't fit that into the Herald.
I was going to say that.
But what's the percentage?
Could we have it available on a common computer at Masonic and here for 2 weeks after the meeting?
I have one available.
Have the taping of the meetings available on a common computer here and or at Masonic Village, so people that don't have access to a computer or can't use a computer,
Well,
let's stop up, hit a button and see it.
Let me answer without answering the ultimate question that you're asking. Let me lob one more thing up. Gwen and I met a couple months ago, and talked about perhaps taking this even a step further, and on the website breaking down the meetings by topic. So, for example, the landslide. That's something that's been discussed at many different meetings. And to be able to say, look, we discussed this in June, July, August, September. Click here for the June, click here. And it's just that piece of the landslide. And they could certainly come and they could see the entire October meeting if they wanted to, or they could just see by subject. And that wouldn't be much more work than what we're already doing. So what I'm answering is that I think it's totally logical and easy to do to archive all of this and have this live online forever, not for 2 weeks, forever. The question is of a publicly accessible terminal. I think that's a little bit more, I mean, not much more, but.
I mean, we don't have anything spare lying around here, so it would have to be
Well, I don't
purchased
think-
instead of
but I don't
something in the
think people
lobby.
that don't have a computer, in 2014, somebody who doesn't have a computer isn't gonna be comfortable looking at it on somebody else's computer.
Right.
I mean,
I agree with you.
Or one could argue they could always go to the library. It's a public library, you can go down there.
But somebody that doesn't have a computer doesn't have a computer because they're not computer literate, and so if they're not computer literate, they're not gonna wanna come here and look at a
Right.
computer.
I think the people that don't have a computer probably aren't, I've got comment from two people that they don't seem to be concerned about it. They don't have a computer, they're not concerned what you guys are doing or anything, but I've had a number of very positive comments about your, especially the breakdown.
Yeah. Well, I guess my take on all this, and the last thing I want to do is have anybody, whether they have a computer or don't have a computer, feel unwelcome or unneeded. But I think that the next step, that's right, it can always come here. The next step in terms of doing a newsletter, right, Gwen, I mean, it's a major investment of time. So it would be putting a lot of resources into scratching an itch that I just don't think is that big.
I think this, in a way, you might even say it supersedes a newsletter. It's a different format, but it,
Well, that's certainly the way I feel, and that's certainly what my actions have shown that I feel. And I kind of come to this realization myself.
I like the categorization and the archiving. I think that would be very beneficial.
Yeah, I agree.
And could you automate that, so to speak? Every time a keyword comes up, it gets,
It's work.
so it's like manual. But I think that's a good idea.
I agree that we stay with what we have. I don't think. we
Okay.
That's back
should add
burner.
anything.
Good. All right, thank you. That's my report.
Can't
Thank
remember
you.
number 3?
Item number 3 was the categorization.
Okay.
you remember. Okay, planning and zoning, nothing. Tax collector. It's one thing we can rely on, the tax collector.
We have for September, earned income tax, $27,763.67. Nothing in the business privilege tax. I think that's collected quarterly. Local service is $30.75. Property tax, $1,056.44. Delinquent real estate, $200, and realty transfer, $2,322.53, for a total of $31,373.39. Somewheres I have my spreadsheet. We are down almost $65,000 from last year to this year. Our total in September
In what category?
in all categories, total.
Total,
What's the property tax?
well,
I did not
Does that
do,
correspond to the reduce in millage?
just about, well.
Right.
I didn't do, I need to make a copy of, if you'd like, George, of 2013, so you have the breakdown. I have the total in September. Last year was 35,532. This year it's 30,530, or excuse me, 31,000. So it's about $4,000 for September. And as I said, last year at this time, we were at 781,000, and this year we are at 707,000. But I will make a copy of the 2013 if you like.
Well, I think if I recall,
Shows it here.
3 big revenues are income, property, and pilot, correct?
Correct. The
Yeah.
earned incomes become, because it's now coming out of everywhere.
Now
Yes.
mandatory.
Yeah, you don't have a choice on that one anymore. And that has made a huge difference.
But did we properly budget for the predictable decline in property tax?
We did.
So I'm not so much concerned about $65,000 short
That's where.
to last year. I'm more concerned about
Expected
65,000 short against budget. So budget versus actual on the 3 main, the pilot's the pilot.
Yeah, we get the exact amount, yes.
We budgeted reasonable increase in the earned income. Are we going to meet that?
I believe we are.
We're gonna come close.
And property tax, we're going to
We're fine on
collect
property.
approximately what we anticipated. That's
Right.
good.
Any other comments, questions?
Okay, we'll accept that report.
Treasurers. In the general fund, PNC, $158,328.34. The Pliget General Fund, $105,183.30. The Pliget Plus, which is the Pliget Money Market, $1,028,876.70. The Liquid Fuels, which is the Maintenance Traffic Fund, $39,904.15. And the reserve fund at Pliget, $103,399.38. The Pliget Capital is $510,601.39. And the PA Invest Fund is down $15,739.35. Total on hand, $1,946,293.26. And the obligated funds removed are operating funds, $1,276,648.99. The sewer bond fund at this point has $362,883.44.
Well, is that the debt service?
Yes.
Well, I have the same question.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we gotta do something about this dividend. I continue to say you gotta get into the laddering as soon as you can.
We'll do that.
It's silly to have this kind of money make 10 cents.
We don't make any money on
I'm sorry, I overstated.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, finance motion. Need a motion to approve the September bill list in the amount of $51,042.74.
I move that we approve the September bill list in the amount of $51,042.74.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think I wanted to note, and I think I'm accurate, Gwen, the 18,000 unanticipated legal cost was within that.
Correct.
So we had an $18,000 unanticipated legal expense within that 51,000.
Excuse me, was that the PAPS calendar? Even though they were on, are they a legal advisor?
And you know,
What do they do?
I think we need to be careful about discussing this
Yeah.
subject matter of that legal, but I just want to point out $18,000 for when did this start? In the summer, I mean, late summer, we engaged them, late summer, right?
Mid.
Tiny amount of legal work, $18,000. So every time we talk about wanting to sue somebody, landslide, all this stuff, just remember, $18,000 for a little wee bit of legal work. We didn't have any choice with this one, but
Can't
keep
take
it
like-
keep it in the back of your head. What's that?
I said that's those are 30.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Motion to ratify September prepaid bills in the amount of $7,103.11.
So move.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. I move
Motion carries.
that we ratify the September payroll transfers in the amount of $116.81.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion of Citizen Budget Committee.
I move that we create a citizens budget committee.
Second?
Discussion. What do you see as the composition of this committee?
I think it can be a committee composed. I wouldn't bake that into the motion, frankly. I'd leave it at the discretion of the budget chair and the manager.
What's the size of the committee?
I think doesn't matter.
How about a condition that dialogue be considered confidential?
Well, I was gonna say, you are certainly free to form whatever committees you think will be useful and take advice from whomever you wish. However, especially under the Public Records Act and under the Sunshine Law, a lot of your, let's put it this way, a lot of your pre-final budget discussions and a lot of what goes into forming the budget is confidential. My concern would be, as Tony just pointed out, if you create the Citizens Committee and you start providing them with documents or with information that's otherwise privileged, you might run into a problem with the confidentiality.
What are the components that are privileged?
Generally, everything up to the final budget is confidential and privileged. Up to the final budget. Once you've adopted a final budget, that's a public document.
Confidential and privileged against what?
Well, suppose somebody wants to see all the notes or all the pre-drafts of the budget or the audit or any of your financial documents. Those records that went into the deliberative process would typically be undiscoverable on a Right to Know Act request or an open records request. Once you've adopted it, no question, that's all. And once you've advertised it, what gets advertised, those are all public documents. But what, the sausage, so to speak, that goes into the making of the final product is confidential.
Let's take an example. Suppose there's some sort of an anticipated legal case. Well, obviously, you're not going to have any discussion on that, but once you put a dollar number in the budget, what's open for discussion? What's public?
Nothing, but suppose what you want to discuss is how much you think should be assigned to that liability and how you arrive at that and what you think your real exposure is and how much is covered by insurance and all the things that go into what number you plug in. That would be part of the deliberative process that otherwise wouldn't be discoverable.
So can I say?
Yeah.
Based on my experience with a number of different authorities, and those matters are usually executive session type matters. When you're debating the budget, what should you put here? What should you put there? Why should you do it? Those are typically confidential. They're not matter of public record.
Until they're
Until
adopted.
you adopt it. Yeah.
So they're adopted, then they go out for public comment?
Well, no, actually, because what you'll do is you'll end up, you'll come up with a tentative budget. You'll advertise your tentative budget, and that's where you'll get your public input and public comment from your tentative budget, which is published at that point. So again, there is an opportunity for public comment before you adopt.
And you're saying that you don't give any information. I'm lost here. So you have a tentative budget. I come to a tentative budget meeting and say, how did you come to that number? And you're not allowed to answer me because that deliberation is confidential?
Well, what you would find out is what numbers were plugged in on what lines and what line items, but there would be some level of discussion which would remain confidential.
But see, I guess I don't understand, and I think I'm speaking your piece here. I don't really understand why that needs to be protected from what?
Okay, so again, I'll go back to the most obvious example is legal. You're gonna come up with, you're gonna have to set aside a certain amount of your budget to pay off potential claims.
Right.
Some of that is gonna depend on how you value or what you think the merit of those claims are, those defenses, and in your case, that's not just hypothetical.
Right.
So, and whether it's covered, whether it's not covered. So we make it a point to discuss litigation and claims in executive session so that we don't lose the confidentiality and the attorney-client privilege. If you release that document to release that information to third parties, you will have in effect waived the attorney-client privilege and the confidentiality that goes with that information. That's the most obvious.
Another personnel is another budget category.
Personnel would
If we
be
wish to
another.
discuss
Again.
that needs to be,
How much are you paying your employees and why? And
the
what are
discussion
their-
itself it would be private. The decision is public.
So
Right, but when
for your citizens committee to have any usefulness, it would need to know, for example, how your employees are compensated, whether entitled to raises, how they've been evaluated, all of which is off the record for purposes usually of your discussions in public meetings.
But who pays those things? I'm just curious where that money comes from.
Well, it comes from your tax dollars.
That's what I just wanted to.
I'm not making a policy or a commissioner's decision. I'm just saying legally there are consequences if you convene a citizens committee and what you release to that citizens committee could be a waiver of
But
confidentiality.
I asked
That's all.
once the tentative budget is released to the public, why couldn't they ask the same questions?
Because you're not allowed to answer them. That's what I asked.
Right. I don't think, even with a tentative budget, I don't think you're entitled to the background deliberations that went into the budget.
George, I think up until Harlan went through that explanation, I was inclined to agree that a budget committee would be a good idea like we have in a manner, but I agree with Harlan. I think that there are subjects and so forth that because this is a public entity,
Yeah.
I think it would sort of rule out
No, they may be neutered before they come in.
well, unless you could limit them and say, well, that's
That's the other.
exclusive.
Well, that's the other
why I
alternative.
said-
Well, let me be
That's the
specific.
other
I had talked to former Commissioner Stoop because to the best of my knowledge, he was the person that helped Gwen last year and the year before, and really no one else was involved. I just thought that during a transition period, Matt and Tony and I have only been here for a year, there might just be something in a former commissioner's brain that's worthwhile. And then the only other person is an accomplished financial person. But if they can't, first of all, I said before, and I agree, it's not that complicated. On the other hand, to turn down talented participation doesn't sit right.
I'm not saying turn it down. I'm
Yeah.
just saying you will have to have confidentiality.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, that's fine.
I'm saying.
There may be limits on what information they receive or the extensiveness of the information they receive.
I think probably with that exclusion and just allowing them with a bottom line number would be sufficient for a committee to consider.
I wouldn't have any objections to them signing just an across-the-board confidentiality.
But I think it's a good idea because it gets people involved. That's the thing.
That's the point. You know,
you
when
talk
people
to
don't,
ours
when
and said
people
that's-
don't know what happened,
Right.
you have problems.
For that purpose, I think it's great.
And number-
It could exclude that. And there's no reason why a committee has to get so detailed anyway that they have to get into the numbers because most of them wouldn't understand anyway, including me.
And to Tony's concern at the workshop meeting, I think we would have to set, or I personally would set a limit on the number of people. I mean, I think 3 to 5 is almost excessive. And
What about,
I'd be more than happy to have them come from various parts of the community. I mean, the two from Spookley Heights Manor just appeared. It was one, I don't care where they come from.
I'm only suggesting that I think there should be at least 2 commissioners on that committee.
Sure. There can only be 2.
Yeah, obviously.
That's fine.
Do you mind if I read you a few emails?
Please.
All right, the first one is from Ruth Dara. Dan and I feel strongly that there should be a budget committee. Why not take advantage of the talent living in Aleppo? As chairman, it seems as though George should be able to work with the committee and then make the recommendations to the full board. Citizen participation in this or other committees doesn't need to be a bad thing. The next one is from Jim Hamilton again. I would not establish a citizens budget committee. The commissioners are already free to and should consult with others like Clay on any issue. However, they are not and should not be required to consult. There is no reason to formalize this arrangement, and there should be no effort to limit or restrict the commissioner's authority or responsibility on budget or other issues. Establishing such a committee would confuse the role the Citizens Committee would play in budget matters, and the commissioners need to consider their recommendations. And the last one is from Tom Johnson. Hallmarks of good governance are broad participation and transparency. To avoid isolation of the board and possible alienation of the taxpayers who pay the tax money available for the budget, it is a good idea to permit residents to view and participate in the process. Gardner is correct that the ultimate decision falls to the board, but broad involvement and openness are a good idea.
And number 1 and 3 are both attorneys.
No, Tom is.
I mean, Dan is,
Dan, yeah.
and Tom is. Well, then here's my other question. If Rod was sitting at breakfast at Masonic Village and a CPA was sitting next to him and you asked his opinion on a budgetary issue, any constraints? In other words, is it the formation of the committee that causes the constraints?
No, it's 2 things. It's what type of, it's taking information and providing that information to any third party or any outside source when it's designed to encourage you as commissioners to have candid and frank discussions in executive sessions to come up with the best decisions you can, given the fact that you are elected officials and that the citizens have put you in charge of coming up with a budget. Now, I agree with the second comment that if you want more citizens' input, there is nothing that prevents any one of you from going to any qualified person in the township and soliciting their advice, but still without disclosing what we discuss in executive session, which is designed to promote a frank debate in a closed session.
Well, I think that's the key, right? And I think that's the distinction that needs to be drawn here, is that you just need to know that when the committee comes in, you cannot discuss what's going on in executive session. Now, I guess, I mean, from somebody who ran on and believes so firmly in open information anyhow, we're certainly free to waive any of those sunshine law requirements. If we want to take any of those 5 categories that are carved out and say, we don't want to protect this, that's fine. I think we would be crazy, given my professional background, I think we would be crazy fools if we let litigation matters out, because that is waiving not just a Sunshine Act right, but then you're waiving attorney-client privilege in the underlying legal matter. But the personnel issue, again, we're not negotiating with unions. It's not as if we're losing an upper hand to discuss that. I don't see that as something that we need to so jealously guard the way the Sunshine Act gives us the right to. That's just a matter of how much information do we want to be out there, and how much do we want to have to work to turn over.
Well, don't you think that even in personnel matters, when say salaries are being discussed, if that information was released, there might be some expectations on the part of certain people for things that'll never happen.
But it's public information as soon
Public
as it's,
information anyway.
as soon as we vote on the budget, it's done. It's
Oh,
public
yeah, we can
information.
vote on it, but in,
He's talking about, for example, for raises or,
yeah, something that you're discussing, is this a good idea or not a good idea? If that information is out, I think that would be dangerous.
We'll give you another example on personnel. Suppose if the idea is you're supposed to be in an executive session where you can talk candidly about what you believe about a certain employee or their performance, whether it's a good impression or a bad impression, and the idea is you should be able to express that freely. How are you going to feel if everything you say about the employee now is in the Sewickley Herald and you read about it the next day? I'm just saying that there are reasons why personnel, litigation, certain categories have been carved out, and Matt is absolutely right. You're perfectly free to waive those and to forego those matters. But there's a reason why they are there, and there is a reason why they exist. I think you waive them at your peril.
Because transparency does not work in politics. Welcome to the real world.
Well, transparency is always balanced with confidentiality and privacy with
That's
the
what I
public
hate.
agents.
Transparency does
So
not work.
there's always a balancing act between.
Keep jumping back and forth. Let's get to the subject and go. We can't.
Okay.
I give you that.
Well, as a for instance, we had decided that we had playground equipment was antiquated. It was gonna cost X number of dollars. Well, at first, just to put that in as a budget item under operating costs or whatever, I didn't like the idea at all. But then somebody came up with the idea of taking X dollars over a period of 4 years out of the reserve for recreation. Now, that's a little bit different story, but that's what a budget committee can do, is to find how you can budget for what purpose and so on, and come up with suggestions. So it isn't necessarily something that the board has to say that's the way we're gonna do it. Just to come up with different ideas on how you can fund certain items.
so we asked residents, do you want us to vote to approve the creation of an Aleppo Citizens Budget Committee? You got 13 responses. 8 said yes, 5 said no.
Not very exciting.
Well, this does not work in perpetuity, but I can tell you that, and I think there are people that can support this. Committees that I chair, number one, no special interests permitted. Number two, using information in those committee meetings to the detriment of the community, not accepted. And number three, they can be very tightly run, but that doesn't mean that 10 years from now that works.
That's
So-
what I'm saying.
I'm willing to
Just
live
do
by
that.
any conditions. I just really feel pretty strongly that to eliminate the possibility of citizen participation in the budgetary process is wrong.
I agree. And I think that, as I keep saying, my take home from all of this is, I like your example of breakfast. That if Rod was sitting there having breakfast and he walked over to somebody and said, hey, I need some help on the budget. And by the way, we're going to need to set aside $30,000 because we have a pending suit by some guy who got his hand cut in our lawnmower. Obviously, Rod has violated the terms of our executive session. So I think that the lesson is just that in creating this, the commissioners who sit on this board and who go into executive session need to be reminded, as we need to be reminded all the time, that what's discussed in executive session is confidential and that the budget committee is not privy to that information. I think that's the better way to go about it than trying to get the budget committee to be confidential.
Are you willing to serve on the committee?
I'm involved in a lot of things. I don't,
The only reason I ask is you're the head of Public Works.
okay.
The only real number that's a fudge number is Public Works, quite frankly.
Yeah, okay.
Would that satisfy your concern?
Yeah.
So then that's,
So far as, then we're talking about 2 commissioners and 1 outside person?
no, up to 3.
That's too many.
Well, I'm going to move that we establish a finance committee.
Well, I have a motion in a second.
Yeah, why don't you say it better?
I think. I don't think anything else needs to be in the motion.
Perhaps the legal conditions?
No, I think that the way to do it is to remind the members of the board who go into executive session that what's said in executive session is private and confidential, and that applies also to the budget committee or the communications committee or any other committee. You just can't.
All right, could the committee then be given a very, very brief memo establishing the guidelines?
The committee doesn't get, the committee is not privy. The onus is on the commissioners who receive confidential information, not
Can the commissioners be given a written document to make sure we know precisely what can be discussed and what can't?
I don't think you can define it all.
You
Okay.
can't discuss what's in,
Okay,
what you learn executive session.
Then I second your motion.
You already did.
Good.
Are you going to set a number of people on the committee?
I don't,
What if 20 people come up and say, I want to be on it? Will you?
I think that's up to the
You'd
committee.
be lucky to get
That,
5.
that's up to the commissioner's discretion.
I
Okay,
agree.
so that's, so then the commissioners on the committee
Yeah.
will choose who's on it.
Right.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah, I'm willing to, yeah, okay. Let's move on.
I think that's too open for the number of people to participate.
Let's have a vote.
You calling the question?
I can't, I don't. Can I?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I call a vote.
I second that.
So we vote on calling the question.
We vote on calling the question, yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Now we vote.
Now we vote on
Roll call vote, please.
Can I ask one question? Who said yeah?
No, I'm sorry, but
I'm sorry.
President Gardner,
no.
Vice President Dover,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes?
Commissioner Asante.
yes.
I'll make one final comment. Being the negative vote, I don't want the impression to be let out that I'm objecting to anybody who's been proposed to the committee. People that have been mentioned, I have great confidence in, and I will certainly work with the people who are working on the committee. You might say the majority has spoken. Okay. Discussion of first draft of the 2015 budget.
I have that here for the board. It is the first draft, so I've worked with George on forming this first draft. What you have is a memo explaining some of the categories and some of the items in it. And then you have the summary page and then the detail page of the budget. So you'll have, oh, sorry. So you'll have that to look over. The normal procedure is we have a discussion at the next meeting. The goal would be to adopt the budget in November, if possible, at the November legislative meeting. We do have advertising requirements we have to meet before adoption. It's adopted by ordinance, so there are rules like that. We can adopt it in December. We have to adopt it by December 31st. We normally, if we see in November that we're not going to make the November adoption, then we would schedule budget hearings. So then those were for some extra dates at the end of December, just in case we don't get it done. We schedule those hearings and advertise them. We've not had to use them since I've been here, but we have them just in case we need to have other meetings. So what you have is the original draft, and I would ask that you look it over and the budget committee looks it over. And then please contact me with questions, me or this committee now. But I'll be the communication point for that, and contact me with any questions you have about the budgets, and I will try to answer them before the next meeting so that we can have a discussion that's focused.
Okay, anything else on that? Aleppo Township Authority. Motion to authorize solicitor to prepare memorandum on potential merger of township and authority. I know we should, let's see. We can have the motion and then the discussion.
Yeah, so moved.
Is there a second? I can second it.
I can start the discussion. Harlan and I had a very brief conversation today. And when I first brought up this subject, I said, I really have no opinion either way. It was a series of circumstances that brought it to the forefront, which we've already discussed. The ownership of the sewer is a bit unusual. The sharing of management capability is a good idea. And then the idea of the loan is a good idea. And when I talked to Harlan, he believes that in his files, he perhaps has a previous assessment of the pros and cons of this. So before we're authorizing, maybe Harlan, you could tell us a little bit about your knowledge of the history.
And this isn't the first time that the issue of whether the township and the authority ought to coexist, and if so, what the respective roles of each ought to be. It's been looked at in the past. Other boards have questioned the viability of the authority and vice versa. So I believe that I have done some research on this issue in the past, not specific necessarily to your situation or to your numbers, but just generally, I think what I did was a bullet point outline of the pros and cons generally of having an authority, what authorities traditionally were used for as financing vehicles, whether that remains a viable idea for you in the future. Obviously, the things that you would normally consider in looking at whether you want to keep your authority or not have to do with the debt, have to do with whether the authority is debt-free, or whether, if it's not, the township's willing to take on or assume the liabilities of the authority. Keeping in mind that your authority is not just sewers, but water and sewers. And I would encourage you along those lines to consider what the debt and what the exposures are, not just of the sewer authority, but of the water side of the authority as well. So I'm happy, I told George, or Commissioner Jones, I'm more than happy to provide you whatever kind of a summary or a bullet point analysis I already have. If you decide you want me to look into it further, I'm happy to do that later. So that would be my suggestion.
I think really what we're most interested in is the uniqueness of this relationship. This is very, very unique. And we want to understand how that would play out. We're all very familiar with authorities and what they do and what they can do and what they cannot do. But uniquely, we have the township holding the debt and the ultimate responsibility for the debt. That has been assigned to the authority, and not the debt, but the obligation to pay down the debt has been assigned to the authority. That does complicate the whole situation with respect to the audit of the authority. I mean, we're sitting here at an authority where we theoretically have, I'm talking sewer now, we theoretically have, I don't know, I don't have in front of me, say $600,000 in fixed assets. But we have a debt of 18 or $16 million. Where's that cap? That's carried over there. One way the auditor said we could get around that is to have a capital lease. You got to bridge that. Right now, we're bridging it by all sorts of footnotes in the authority's audit, which is not completely visible. It could be. So there are a number of issues, but I don't have any objection to do it in one way or another, but you have to understand. I don't think, we don't need a discussion of what an authority should be. You know that. I think we want to know about the uniqueness that we're now faced with here and how we can best do that. And what are the problems? The problems are how do you take care of the debt? Is it a capital lease? What else? Do you
Tony, excuse me for one second. When you talk about the debt, just so I'm clear, are you talking about the bond issue?
it is the debt.
And the bond issue is in the name of what? The authority or the township? Township, right.
Right.
Okay, so that's township debt, not authority debt.
What's the authorities? The authority, I'm telling you, all we have is an agreement to pay the debt. And it, from my understanding, it's a very complex arrangement with respect to how do you properly audit that? There are ways to do it. And we also have the issue now that when we get into building this replacement line now, we're going to have to go out. Somebody's going to have to go out and get money to do that. Who gets money to do that? The authority doesn't have. What's our? We couldn't get money to do the original one. How are we going to do anything else?
So
I'm saying it's convoluted.
Well, I'll do whatever the board would like.
No, all I'm saying is just do it as it affects what we really have here. That's all. There's ways to do it. I'm not saying there isn't. I just want you to address it based on our existing condition.
And what's the most efficient way to operate in the future?
That's it. That's what we want to know. I have no preconceived ideas.
So, Mr. President, may I speak in opposition to this motion? I also spoke with Harlan, and we spoke very briefly, and just in my brief conversation, I wasn't convinced that it's ever going to be prudent to merge the township and the authority. So with that thought in mind, I don't think that it is economically viable. I mean, if Harlan could push a button and print something out of his file, that would be fine. But I think Commissioner Lasante speaks appropriately that he's not going to have that memo sitting on his hard drive. The memo that he would need
Not the one that
Commissioner Lasante wants.
No.
It's going to be a detailed memo. What you're asking him to do is do a more than a legal analysis. You're asking him to do a business analysis, and I just don't think that us spending Dickie McCamey dollars to do that is a worthwhile use of public funds. So I oppose.
Well, how do you propose we analyze this? I mean, is this, what's the best way to go? I'd like to see us decide, should we stay separate or with an authority for certain reasons, or should we merge for certain reasons? It seems to me that
So you're not talking about a merger in any event. What you would have to do legally is you would have to dissolve,
Well,
I think is the word,
Okay.
the authority. The authority can't dissolve you. So it's really not a merger. It would be a dissolution of the authority. And some of the prerequisites to that, as I said before, are the authority would have to be debt-free. and the authority, or the township would have to be willing to assume the debt of the authority, one or the other.
Right.
So in essence, make the authority debt-free before you can dissolve it. Otherwise, you have the creditors that have to be taken care of. So, again, I'm happy to give you whatever it is you think you want, but it does sound like to do that kind of an in-depth analysis would require me to work with the auditor, with the whatever outside auditors you've hired, and to do a combined analysis with the auditors, because I think what you're really looking at here is more than a legal decision. I agree with Matt, or Commissioner Dobler, excuse me. I think you're looking at really a forensic analysis of the books and what serves you best going into the future. So, again, I'll do the level of memo that you would like, but it's up to you.
But the problem, let's just get back to the board, what you and I discussed. The problem that I have with ever dissolving the authority is the notion that we give service to people outside of Aleppo. We have service to people outside of Aleppo. And that the way that the law is written, that if we are serving people outside of Aleppo and we don't have an authority, that subjects us to additional levels of scrutiny that are never going to be tasteful.
I think
you are correct about that, and that is one of the other considerations with an authority. Authorities were created, one of the other reasons they were created was to allow you to provide service outside your geographic territory without subjecting yourselves to PUC regulations. So that's the other big advantage that an authority has. You already have commitments outside of Aleppo, extraterritorial service commitments. And I think for that reason, again, what Commissioner Lasandi is saying and what you're saying is sort of the same thing. You really have to do a pro and a con analysis, and you've got to look at what would the cost be for undergoing PUC regulation on our rates, what would the benefit be to doing that, what would the cost be to taking out the authority's debt such as it is, what would the benefit be? And you really need to go through the list, and you have to do that kind of analysis.
Yeah, let me add, I agree with that. I don't think it's worth the effort here. I think the issues we have can be handled by individual action. For example, should we have a capital lease? That could be an individual action. Should we borrow from the township? That's a separate, we've got to go someplace to get money. We can't go, we have no, if you look at we have no capability to go, well, we do. We can go to a bank and get a loan like any other Tom, Dick, or Harry. What we're trying to do, of course, is we're trying to go to the various agencies, as we've already done, to get grants or get loans, or come to the township and get a loan. So these are things we'll have to resolve, but because we don't have the wherewithal to really operate as an authority. I mean, that financially.
Couldn't we somehow come up with just a gut feeling? I wouldn't proceed on this path unless there's a significant savings in dollars. And if we don't see a significant savings in dollars, I don't see going ahead with the study.
One parallel thing I've found, there's always been a lot of discussion about communities in Western Pennsylvania, especially that are too small to exist. And most of the analysis comes forward with, don't try to dissolve the community, just share services. And exactly. And so I think in this case, we're talking about how we work together, not necessarily a dissolution of the authority. Because I think that has all kinds of nightmares to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we should do is stop this conversation now and clearly define the 5 or 6 points of issue, deal with them individually.
Yeah.
And Gwen and I have already started to review, as an example, the details of the bond issue and who really has the obligation, et cetera. We've already discussed the sharing of management capabilities. So I think dealing with those services, so to speak, between the two organizations, like you were saying, will reveal some answers without kind of a obscure legal review, right? So I don't know whether I pull the motion or vote against it, whatever.
So you want to withdraw your motion?
Well, I withdraw it.
Okay.
How about that?
That's the secondary withdrawal.
There goes Dickie's budget.
Good.
Okay,
Okay, we'll handle the other issues point by point.
okay,
And we are at the authority.
you're talking, the agenda is the COG, right?
No, he's got to report
Oh,
from the
wait
authority.
for it.
I got 4 items to discuss.
Okay,
I'll try to do it rapidly. My first item is just to repeat our superintendent maintenance report. And that is, for all of you that do not know it, the authority has finished the project of a new water line at South McCoy Place. They've hooked up all customers, they've all been tapped. The new line is in. The authority has made whatever restoration they could with the guards. They'll probably have to come back and do some additional after paving is done. In addition, the authority, in conjunction with the Public Works, was requested to install major underdrain pipes along South McCoy. There was no drainage available. That was all done by the authority in cooperation with the township. So that road is ready to be paved. As far as we're concerned, everything's been done to it. Talk about, well, when I get into the finances, I'll talk about the concept of who pays for what. But on the drainage, the township did pay for that, pay for the pipe and the material and put it in. Okay. All right. Number 2 is after 9 months of toil, we finally have a set of financials that are reasonably accurate and believable. And I first want to commend Tom Sinclair, our treasurer, who spent most of the time doing this. And in order to get this, the township has hired a new auditor, and the township has retained a
The authority, Tony?
I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. That's what I was.
Yes.
Thank you.
2 hats.
Yeah, 2 hats. The authority retained a public accountant to help prepare the data that we need and what we've never had or have not had for 9 months, so that we can have a legitimate business-like operation where we get good, meaningful P&L, meaningful balance sheet, and meaningful cash flow. With all that said, as of the end of September 2014, the water system is running at a loss. And the reason for the loss is twofold. One is all of the out-of-pocket costs for legal and engineering that the Water Authority has spent to investigate, try to mitigate, and evaluate what's happening on this land side. And I'll get into that later. So that as of the end of September is $35,000 so far out of pocket. We're still at it. Our best estimate is probably gonna cost about $50,000 out of pocket. Out of pocket, it's expense item, it shows up here, there's no revenue to cover that. The other issue is part of the issue that I've been discussing, and that is when the authority is asked to replace water lines as part of a paving project. The concept of the authority has been, and it's a very commendable concept, is if, for example, if a developer wants the water lines, or wants us to extend water line, the authority would do that with their own labor, as long as the developer pays for all the material. It works out to be a very inexpensive thing for the developer, and it certainly allows the authority to control construction, inspection, and to ensure that those lines are put in right. So I really believe that the previous authority that adopted that is a very, very good policy, and we'd like to continue that. But in that regard, we just had we just talked about the South McCoy, and the authority, the material that we had to use there was $25,400. It appears here there was no budget for it. We didn't have, the previous authority never set up a capital fund. So there's very little money in capital fund. Everything has to come out of the P&L. So it's cash in, cash out. So if we look at the 25 grand and the 35 as we are now, for all intents and purposes, then the authority were broken even. So they didn't lose money, but they're a very, very tight budget. And if it continues this way, then we're gonna have to sit back, bite the bullet, and think about raising rates, which I hate to do, unless we can come up with some other method. We'll have to cover that. Now, going on to the sewer, I must tell you, I'm very pleased there. The results here on the sewer side of the equation is that for all intents and purposes, they're a little bit in the black. However, if we are successful in our case with Swiftly with respect to paying for all the charges they charged us for those inaccurate meters, which we think is about $100,000, that will clean up the sewer financials in an instant. So that's another subject which we probably want to discuss in executive session. Okay? But so, sum and substance is we know what our cash flow is, we know what our balance sheet is, we finally have financials. And we could frame them. It's the first I've seen in 9 months. Okay, so much for that. I'm going to defer the landslide until we get into let me go to the sewage flows with Swiftly. I want to defer that for an executive session because I understand we just received a communique from Swiftly.
We did.
You want to quote that for us?
We received a response letter to the letter that you wrote on September 9th, and it said, "The Borough Council received your letter of September 9th, 2014 at its Committee of the Whole Council meeting on Tuesday, October 14th, 2014. There will be no further offers forthcoming." Signed, Swiftly.
We obviously are not going to accept that. So we'll go into executive session and discuss it.
What are they gonna do if we just continue to send the 15-6 and do we get our money back? What are they gonna do about it?
We'll go into the executive session and discuss it. All right? So I'll defer that till then. All right, my last item is in fact the landslide. And I've told you what the out-of-pocket has been. It will be about 50 grand. We received a $100,000 loan from the Allegheny County and that loan cannot be used to pay for the cost that we've already incurred, or can't be used for legal, and it can't be used for engineering on that issue. But that loan can be used for engineering on the proposed new water line. So therefore, we have the authorization for the loan. We'll be receiving final papers here in 2 weeks. And we have a decision that we can start spending that money on the loan for anything associated with the new water line. So accordingly, we are going to use that upfront money to, one, install that early warning system that it's already been designed. The authorities, personnel are already working on putting it in, and the materials have been ordered. And through all that cooperation, the cost of that early warning system, which I originally thought was going to be as high as $20,000, looks very much like it's going to be about $11,000. So there's been some very good work done there.
That will basically warn us of any movement of the line.
It will warn us of any leak in the line. What it measures is pressure. It measures the pressure in the line, very sophisticated. And the line is a series of bell and joint connections. And if there is any leak, the pressure between here and there will drop, and you will see that. And it's a fairly sophisticated metering system, and the range of pressure we can set. We could see small pressures, or we could see major pressures, and that's what we need, because if this line does start leaking before we get the opportunity to put a new line in, then there's significant danger. Yeah, can I have that easel?
Can you get one?
Yeah.
Who do you want, the center?
Wherever you want.
That's good right there.
Where you want me.
Should we face the camera?
When?
Should you want the camera or the board? Who are you explaining?
I'll ask for communication.
Face the
You can't
board.
face both.
How about if you go behind the board?
How about if I just?
They can turn around.
It won't, you know what, the camera won't, that's too detailed. You won't be able to read that on the camera
I'll tell you
anymore.
what. George, I have 8 by 11 copies under the paper clip. There.
Yep.
There it is. I have a whole series of them. I have 5 of them under there. Paper, paper clip.
Yep.
Has that.
Yeah.
So that's
One for
detail.
you.
But what that doesn't have, and it can have, is all these contours to give you a sense of what's going on here. Okay? What we talking about?
Can you see?
No, but I got this little thing.
Okay.
Our existing water line, we have a connection up here at Duff Road, connected to Westview Water. There, comes down on Hill Road, and presently goes down the old Hill Road. A landslide has occurred. Excuse me, a lot of water line is here, and almost a straight shot down all the way down, crosses the highway and ends up over in the Little Township service. Glenfield, and early warning system will be installed on manhole hydrant. Bottom of the line. Now, that one is a very significant loss of pressure. If you're looking at elevations, you just want to.
Could you stand on the other side?
I was thinking right
How's that?
Okay.
now, they
Right
can't
here.
see it anymore.
Before it was it.
All right.
There.
All right.
Before it needs a seat.
Either way. Where we pick up the line, we're at elevation of 1,400 approximately. This line goes all the way down to an elevation of about 700. So significant hit on this. So anyway, the landslide, and we have photos of this almost every month. What occurred was that the Jason owner here, the owner, dumped a significant amount of debris right on the right of way here. And that superimposed a load on this subsurface. And the subsurface has very clay and other things that are very subject to movement. If you go over to Walmart, you see what happened.
Yeah.
It was a $60 million, which
Pittsburgh
More than
red
60
clay.
million.
it's called Pittsburgh. It is red clay. So in any event, they dumped that, and our geotechnical experts have told us and have verified in their mind that superimposed load caused this fall slide. And it's exposed. There's only a foot or so of cover over the pipe, and it's continuing to slide.
Where again is the pipe shut? Present
Pipe is
line?
that big blue line.
The blue line, okay.
That's the pipe. This is extent. This after every rain, just about this continues to. It's continuing moving down. It's moving here. And if you're familiar with that area, this is quite a hillside here, which drains to that road. And now with this superimposed load, this is moved and continued. Now, we were able to, our solicitor was able to get an injunction to have the Krieger, the landowner, remove the material. They've done that. They reshaped it. It looked pretty good there for a week or so until it rained. Then started moving again. You know, when I say moving, it's moving 3 feet a week.
Did they clear that gutter out, that concrete gutter
Yeah,
out?
frankly, it's such a small thing. It can't possibly handle all.
Well, who was trying to move the dirt back? Did you guys hire somebody or did the landowner?
We didn't move it back.
Well, no, I thought somebody, you said they tried to relay.
No, what they did is they went in, this gentleman also has a construction material. So he did take out all the debris, or
Right.
not all, as much as he could,
Okay,
but a lot of it was buried. So what he did is he tried to reshape
oh, he did, okay,
he reshaped this and made it a constant slope from year to year.
okay.
All right, but the water, and this was already cracked, and within a week or two after the rain, we saw it crack developing. We've got photos of all this.
Did the water line itself break?
No, God,
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm just.
that's major.
That's our concern.
That's our
That's our
concern.
concern.
Yeah, okay.
This is all to prevent that.
We're doing everything to prevent it. And we're measuring it. Now, to answer your question, if the water line breaks, running alongside this, within 50 feet of our water line is the main gas line by Ecuador gas. That line runs just parallel to our line.
Okay.
Okay. If that water line breaks, and there's a natural draw there, if you look at the contours of this. What will happen is that water will remove all the friction and the whole thing will start flowing. And the pipe will definitely break and maybe gas line.
And that'll be compromised.
And not only that, you're compromising the people there.
Well, yeah.
Tony, just for point of reference, I-79 is up and down. It's up there, okay.
It's up here. Well, you're Kilbuck, here, the old Kilbuck Road, you see it right here. Here's Deer Run, here's Kilbuck. The water line comes up here.
Okay.
So if that line ruptures, major rupture, it will create such a flow and take away all friction, and that land is going to really go. And we've always been concerned what happens down here. We've got homes down here.
Which is Glenfield, right?
That's good.
At Kilbuck Street.
That's Kilbuck Street. See that? That is good.
Those, it's like half a dozen houses, right?
Yeah.
Right at the end of Deer Run Road.
There's 7, and they're all in Glenfield.
Well, yeah, and we have USGS maps, we located them, and we've located properties. But anyway, so we've got to protect that. You can sit here and do nothing, but I don't think that's an option anymore. Based on our engineer, he indicates that there's little, he can give us little assurance that that line will remain. This is still moving. Land's still moving.
But before our people at home panic, am I correct that there's a contingency plan to supply water and protect that gas line?
Nobody.
I just don't want 400,000 people thinking we're gonna all blow up tonight.
Yeah. I didn't say that, did I?
Text message.
No. Yeah, well, if you got that impression, it's.
No, I just didn't want the public to get that impression.
No,
Because my phone will be busy.
that's why we're monitoring it. Out of your question, we already have here in Aleppo a interconnection system with SWIC. So if we get a notice that this is going to rupture, our superintendent assures us within an hour or two that he can.
That line, the interconnecting line, that's an 8-inch line, isn't it? It's Swickley.
Yeah.
They just recently made that an 8-inch.
Right.
We're being fed with a 12-inch
Yes.
line, so we're gonna be getting half the supply of
Water,
water.
it's a function.
They said they can fully supply Masonic, they can fully supply Aleppo.
Yeah, that was, they can do.
Yeah.
We might have a little problem.
Here,
with Yeah. Because they were doing it before. That's what they was doing before.
At an increased rate though, right?
Oh, much greater.
50% greater.
Yeah, it's gonna be a significant cost if we go to major cost.
Probably the pressure, I don't know, the pressure of the water line down here is around almost 300 PSI. Probably along that hillside, it's what, 200?
Yeah, you're about 100 or something. So that's 200 pound pressure. You can think of a 200 pound pressure hose out there shooting against that roof.
That's significant.
So in any event, that's where we are. And so, and when you see the red line, that's where we're proposing for brand new line. And we have 2 routes we're taking. And in order to properly design this, we've already authorized our geotechnical engineer to do a whole subsurface investigation. So that's underway. I'm going to sit down.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, if they get a new sewer or a new water line in there in the 2 places and that's happy, whatever, you still have the question of the landslide.
We're a little worried about it then because the pipe would be out of my area.
Okay, but that's still dirt shifting and traveling. Is that gonna change the landscape of like Walmart?
No, but the issue is that remember, this is not an Aleppo property.
It's not our problem.
It's not your problem, okay.
No, I said it's not our problem.
It's not gonna create a situation like,
We're not,
Right, because it's a lot less land.
and we're not going in and playing around with that land.
Right. But you said it's already moved,
It moves, yes.
so, but it didn't used to move before any of this happened. Right?
when he put that.
Well, I realized when he put that in there, it was compromising that sort of shit.
It never moved. It's been in there since 1976. There was no movement.
All right, let's come to order and let's have one conversation, please. George, let's have one conversation, please.
But it's kind of disruptive.
I understand
Well,
that, so, but
that's-
it doesn't help to have more than one conversation.
Yeah.
Should I not be asking?
No, go ahead, that's fine, we want you to be involved.
You ask me whatever you want. Let me just say that that pipe has been in there since 1976.
Okay,
There's been no movement.
Right.
No physical movement of the land for that pipe all that time.
I understand.
That pipe was in great shape. Fortunately, it's still holding fast,
Right.
even with all this superimposed load.
because that's my concern about the superimposed load. I know it's been kind of cleaned up, tried to be reshaped, but you're saying it's still moving.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the dirt.
Well, go ahead about the red pipe.
Well, look.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let me just explain. Once, this is known as Pittsburgh red clay.
I know.
Okay, all right? Think of it as jello in a container. And dump it on an incline. What happens? You can't contain it. It's gonna go every which way. Once you
Yeah,
go-
look, our concern is not of the dirt in the other township. We're concerned about the water line, and that's where I think we should continue our
Well,
discussion.
It could be an effect, the dirt moving could be an effect somewhere, and I'm just.
That's not our problem.
Okay, I thought, all right. And the discussion, I guess.
Right.
Well, let me just.
No, that's okay.
Let me
We can
just say.
continue on, and I can ask it another time.
Let
That's
me
not a problem,
just say.
because I don't want to tie it up.
Yeah, we're concerned about it. That's why as I said, that's why we want to determine if that line moves. Because
Okay.
then you will get some movement. Right now, it's moving, but it's moving
What's that?
an inch,
We're out of
5
order.
inches, 6 inches, or 10 inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
A public
Alright.
freaking conversation.
But that's, okay.
Okay.
Tony, next.
Yeah.
What do
Let
you,
me just say, do we think that's gonna, the front end cost is gonna be about 50 grand. And we'll use that loan to do that. But the cost of construction here could be, the design and construction could be about 300,000. And so we're gonna fund the preliminary engineering with that loan. And so we're gonna come hat in hand somewhere to get the money to fund the construction. The new line. We're already designing it. Once we get the soil information through, we'll have the line designed. We'll decide which of those two routes we're gonna take, be based on subsurface, what's best. Once we do that, we'll have a new line, a new water main. The other one will be abandoned. And we'll still have service from Westfield.
have you explored yet other sources of dollars to?
We have, yes, we've retained a grant individual, the one that got us this grant. We have a whole page of potential grants, and what we know right now is there is no more money this fiscal year
From,
from the state and from the county. We
Okay.
talked about federal, that was a hurricane money, and there's no more of that money available for this.
FEMA was only for hurricane money.
That, the one that was quoted.
Hmm.
We will continue to look
Hmm.
at everything. We didn't say, you restrict yourself, go find us grants, or go find us loans,
Hmm.
either one.
Okay,
So we can't do that till after 2015. We've already made all those connections with the proper political people. So I think we're in fair shape. So we will have to put that line in. And we'll have to abandon the other line. We just can't hang here,
Okay,
okay? All right, that's where we are on that. I think that's all I have except for the sewage.
well, I don't think we can take any more good news like that.
Well, let me just say, we didn't cause it,
No,
and we're trying to cure it.
right. No, I
And it's costing
commend,
us money.
I commend your efforts. You don't want-
Well, it's been the efforts of our geotechnical engineer and our superintendent who's done most of this work.
As Billy Joel said, we didn't start the fire,
Right.
but we're trying to fight it.
That's exactly.
We didn't light it, but we're trying to fight it.
Good way.
He's a good man.
Can I make one really loud? I've already gotten 2 text messages, so I just want to say something on live. That this does not represent an impending safety as far as a gas leak. It's being monitored by people in Allegheny County. It's being, the water, we have a way to get water to Masonic. We have a way to make sure that if this gas line, if there's a problem, everybody here has been working on this for many months. I think we may have just inadvertently announced a potential issue into the community without any prior knowledge. And so I just don't want the people that are watching this to be scared that there's an issue when in fact these people have dealt with the safety issue of that.
Yeah, this has been ongoing since.
Yeah, they don't know that though.
Yeah. It's been mentioned before, yeah.
Well, these are from the Masonic, so. Interesting.
Okay. That's your report.
I missed that comment, but okay. No, Masonic will also, will be informed about this also. That ends my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tony. COG, any report?
Well, unless Gwen has anything she wants to add from the dinner?
It was nice.
Did you win anything? That's a good
I
question.
did not win any door prize.
Oh, I take a $30 back.
Not a door prize.
Who won our door prize?
I didn't see, I was talking.
Oh, boy.
Sorry. But it was not the last to go, so there's that.
Ambulance Authority.
No reports.
Public Works, Tom, you're still here.
7-0 impression.
Keep this brief, so. We cracked sealed all the township roads, which from the ridge there to that. And we spent 3 weeks in there. I mean, the township took over 2 roads that were in a lot of disrepair. And they even replaced all the grates. Still have 6 catch basins and never got the bicycle grates in. So we're gonna have to replace them at some point. And we had to put a new rope on the flagpole and replace the bulbs that went out on the spotlights, and a new comfort tree on Ferndale that came down. Cleaned off Dervis off catch basins throughout the township with the storms we've had. And had a tree come down on Ferry Road on the 8th. We kept your ass throughout the township, and again, maintenance on the salt spreaders. Putting the bearing and stuff. We got one done, we got another to do. And any discussion on a backhoe yet, or what we're gonna do?
Cool. Gwen, I think you told me that you and Tom investigated used backhoes.
Oh, yes. I forgot to bring my note in. Help me out with this.
I talked to Cleveland Brothers, and he said if you would go with the used machine, you can't use state pricing, number one. There's no warranty. So if you go buy a used one, you don't know what you're buying, basically.
And when you can't use state pricing, that means we have to advertise and ask people to sell us.
And you looked on the auction where
We
we
looked on the
sold.
auction website, there was one foul-looking machine in Baton Rouge. So it was, that was done.
Left over from the hurricane.
Yes.
So I'm going to go back to my original motion and move that we permit the purchase of the backhoe as bid received.
I just want to write that down. Motion to purchase backhoe. Do you want to say from CAT? Is that where it's from?
Yeah,
From
Cleveland Brothers.
Cleveland Brothers, thanks.
Put the model number in too.
So you make that motion?
And
I second
what was the price on it? 70,000?
And that's after the trade-in.
After the trade-in. So it was like about 93 with an $18,000 trade-in for a total of around 75.
And that's 75 out the door. That's all the taxes and.
That's everything. That's state pricing. You'll have it. In fact, the thing's on Gwen's desk with the exact figure. Because they're giving us in that price is included a 4-foot grading bucket and also a 1-foot bucket. And the authority, we can use their 2-foot bucket because it'll fit that machine, which we can enter back buckets. So.
And the money to pay for this.
That would just come from fund balance. We do have it in, as you know, from Charlotte's report, it would come from the large account. It's just the fund balance.
Okay.
I think if you recall, Tom is going to defer the purchase of a truck. But again, this is part of the budget consideration. We're looking at some kind of a longer term plan to replenish funds for specific purposes. So
Well, technically, with this new machine, we should get 20 years out of this machine. Technically, with this newer machine.
Okay.
So that should be good.
So the warranty you get on
It's a full 1 year, and I believe the drivetrain's a 5-year warranty on the machine. I believe it is.
We'll take your signature for the 20-year.
was there a second?
There was a
Yeah.
second, Tony seconded, yes.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
President Gardner,
Yes.
Vice President Dover,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Lasandi.
Yes.
I'd like to thank the board.
Now, we'd like to thank you for all the work you did.
You've done the work. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you thought it out well.
Thank you.
Accept the Public Works report. Solicitor.
I'll hold my comments for the executive session.
Sounds like midnight.
I'm DVRing the game. Is it worth it?
537 plan.
No report.
Unfinished business. Altogether, nothing. New business. You want to list the action items that we have to keep under consideration? Policies, financial management, anti-fraud, whistleblower, travel. Anybody want to comment?
Have we received any of those documents?
We have not. Mark Turnley I've talked to him a couple of times on some different issues, and he's in the middle of a huge project right now, and he says he apologized for the delays, not forgotten us, but he's gonna get us some samples. I'm also gonna look up some samples myself and see if we can just kind of piece some stuff together.
Okay, does that apply to everything else? Disaster recovery plan for data.
Is that new? Have we seen that disaster recovery plan?
That's been on there.
What is our disaster recovery plan for data? We don't have one.
No, I mean, we have carbonite backup system in there.
Yeah.
That often works, and occasionally it just cycles and you have to go in and I notice it and I get it to back it up. I'm not super confident on the system we have, the way it's set up right now, and I would love it if someone who had more knowledge in that kind of stuff than me would look into it and see.
$129 a year. You can back it up
Offsite, yeah.
offsite.
It is offsite. It's,
Oh, it
it is Carbonite, the internet version of Carbonite.
I got you.
Just the
It's not a
Carbonite.
physical.
But I'm not clear on how all of our computers link together. So I think it needs to be reinvestigated.
Okay.
It's currently backing up the financial computer. That's it.
What other computers do we have that need?
There may be stuff from my computer that would be good to have, some of the documents.
Why don't you and I talk about this?
I would love to.
Okay. Payroll training?
I'm looking into, there's a class at the end of November that I'm going to see if that meets the requirements of what Mark was suggesting.
And bank reconciliation, same story, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Citizen participation, usual cautions, name, rank and serial number. Keep it brief.
Okay. Hey, I'm not gonna ask you about the land. I'll ask.
Come on up to the podium though for us, please.
Okay. I just wanted, Sandy Moore, 921 Redgate Road. I just want to know, at the workshop meeting last week, I asked about the authority, it was thought that the authority was going to assume the cost of all the repairs for Hill Road.
For what
in lieu
road?
of- or
The
For the
landslide.
landslide. In lieu of paying for the right of way. And at that time I asked, and I thought, were they saying it was 350,000 possibly for the expenses? And I said, well, how much does the right of way cost? And I was told it's negotiable. And Matt, you agreed, yes, it's negotiable, but probably not to that extent. And you said that you were gonna check with Harlan for this week to see what in fact really happened, because I forget his name.
Chris?
Tony.
Oh, Tony.
That he wasn't at that meeting, so he wasn't sure what had happened, and you were gonna check with Harlan. So I just wanna know the answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, let me try to give you a brief
Couldn't
response to that,
remember
okay?
names.
Because I think that what was reported at the workshop meeting last week was a little bit mistaken. The settlement that took place, and Harlan, correct me if I'm saying this incorrectly, but the settlement that took place with the owner of this property was not a settlement for monetary relief. It was a settlement for equitable relief, which means that the lawsuit that we had filed against this landowner was only to get him to do something, not to pay for something, okay? So that's the difference between equitable and monetary relief. Most lawsuits you know about are for monetary relief, but sometimes you want to ask something, you want to have the court
Wanted to fix it.
make somebody do something, right? So that was for equitable relief. And the settlement that Harlan negotiated was only a settlement of that equitable relief. So he agreed to do what we had demanded in our suit, which was take the superimposed load off. So he did that. Going along with that, part of that settlement was that he agreed to give us these right-of-ways
For the new one.
for the new water line. That settlement was without prejudice to our right to sue for monetary relief later. So if we decide we want to go back and say, hey, we've incurred all these costs as a result of your negligence or your wrongful actions, we can still do that. We can still have a separate lawsuit for money damages. Now, the question of whether we want to have that is a totally different question, and it's probably something that's best for executive session. But again, this is where I get back to $16,000 for a pinky worth of work. The question that we'll need to answer in executive session when that time comes is the legal fees that we're going to have to pay to have somebody pursue that monetary relief on our behalf worth what we might or might not get. You know, he's not gonna roll and just say, oh, let me give you money. So the question is you have to assess liability. Are you gonna how likely are you to get a judgment? It's a question of damages. If you get a judgment, how much money are you going to get from a judgment? And then it's a question of collection. How many assets does he have that he could satisfy a judgment with? So that's insurance. Or insurance, right. That's the three-part balancing that you have to ask that says, is it worth spending the legal fee to go after that? Unfortunately, I don't think Edgar Snyder would be willing to take this case on a contingency fee. Harlan, do you think you would?
Yeah, so his only thing was to remove the debris
That's correct.
and not worry about it landslide or anything, but just to remove the debris.
Well, that's not, you're sliding in
Oh, it's sliding.
no, you're sliding. You're sliding in a part there that I'm not willing to concede.
Okay.
That-
I'm sorry,
that-
I'm just asking.
I understand, but it's worth saying. I don't think that, and again, Harlan, correct me if I'm wrong. At this point, no releases have been signed. So it's not as if we've said to him, in exchange for these right-of-ways or whatever, we haven't given up our right to sue, and certainly nothing has been given up in the event that something else happens. So what happens if that land slides? That's not been decided yet. What happens if our water main breaks and it causes the EQT line to break? That's not been decided yet. That's all some of the risk that we're trying to juggle here, because we don't necessarily know how all that shakes out.
Thank you.
Okay,
The important thing is you have not waived or given up any
That's right.
of your important legal rights.
Right, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
anybody else? Okay,
So before adjournment, one very simple thing. It's my understanding this is Martha's last formal meeting, and that her official date of retirement is October 30th. So even though we've only worked together officially for a year, I would like to personally thank you for everything you've done. You've been a loyal employee of the township, and we hope to see you on a regular basis.
Well, she'll be here for every meeting.
I would like to just add one thing to that.
That's what I said.
Don't do it,
You can
Martha,
still
don't
come.
do it.
There he won't be there.
You can still come.
Yeah, I would like to add one thing to that. I've been here 9 years and Martha has been here with me the whole time. And when I started, my first day, she taught me how to work the copier. So she has been with me this entire time and I'm very, very, very grateful. And I appreciate it.
Thank you, Martha.
That being said, you might want to reconsider your decision.
We'll talk about it in executive session.
And so whatever you do to go into executive session.
Make a
Rod
motion.
announce it.
well,
Well, actually, you don't even need a
Yeah,
motion.
just
You
announce
just announce it.
not that we are going into executive session, but the specifics you have to say
To
to,
discuss legal claims and pending litigation.
okay. Because I didn't know what,
I'm gonna go home.
I